I'm going to be reading serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. They are just absurd. So I just wanted to welcome you to my channel. And I'd appreciate it if you want to click that. That subscribe button now. If you are not already subscribed, that would help me out tremendously. And if you like this type of a whispered content, then please thumbs up. So I am using y'all's favorite mic per the comments. So this should be pretty relaxing. Very relaxing. Superbly relaxing. Sit back and relax. Take a load off of your shoulders. Let the day just fall away. Just let it all go. Get ready for bed. Wash your face and brush your teeth. Plug in your electronics. Take any medication you may or may not need. Well, I mean, no, don't take any if you don't need it, but you know what I'm saying. If you need a warm blanket that's really comfortable, then please get it at this time. So we always ask ourselves, what if the world were to stop spinning? What if we died tomorrow? What if there was another ice age? What if could drive us crazy, right? Well, I actually bought a book from the library about all the as scientific as this man could possibly get. Randall Munro, as far as his mind would take him to the utmost boundaries. And actually, I read the book. It is quite fascinating. He worked on robotics at NASA and eventually left NASA to draw comics full time. So as you can see, that is so obvious of a career change. Eventually it found its way to a new outlet, answering the internet's weird and sometimes worrying questions. So here is he and his wife. Randall, are there more things soft or hard in our house? His wife, I don't know. Well, how about in the world? I don't know, his wife says. So terrible things happen, and then there's terrible things happen, but more slowly. So I'm sure he drove his wife absolutely crazy. biggest and weirdest questions in the world he tries to scientifically answer, right? What if global windstorm? So this is the first one. What would happen if the Earth and all the terrestrial objects suddenly stopped spinning, but the atmosphere retained its velocity? Well, A, let's just be honest, nearly everybody would die. Then things would get interesting. At the equator, the Earth's surface is moving at about 470 meters per second. That's a little over 1,000 miles per hour relative to its axis. If the Earth stopped and the air didn't, the result would be a sudden 1,000-mile per hour windstorm. Oh boy, that isn't good. I mean, literally, that would just anybody who is standing on the Earth's surface would just be ripped apart. And pretty much anything on it, right? 1,000 miles per hour. And guess what? The highest winds would be at the equator, but everybody and everything living between 42 degrees north and 42 degrees south, which includes about 85% of the population. 85% of the world's population, of course, would suddenly experience supersonic winds. I'm sorry, this isn't funny, but it kind of is. The highest winds would last for only a few minutes near the surface. A few minutes near the surface. The highest wind just near the surface. Friction with the ground would slow them down. However, those few minutes would be so long, or they'd feel so long, but they'd definitely be long enough to reduce virtually all human structures to dust. Literally to dust. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you remember we used to ask these questions when we were little? Well, I did anyway. I used to drive my mother nuts. My home, he lives in Boston, is far enough north to be just barely outside the supersonic wind zone. However, the winds there would still be twice as strong as those in the most powerful tornadoes. Buildings, from sheds to skyscrapers, would be smashed flat as a pancake, torn from their foundations and sent tumbling across the landscape. Well, let's think about that for a second. So you look up and here's, I don't know, the Sears Tower just rumbling toward you. What do? Do you duck? Do you lie flat? Do you try to jump over it? I mean, I know this is a stupid question, but literally, what do you do? Do you just stand there and go, shit, this is my last day on Earth? I don't know. I just think it's funny. Because really, what would you do? I'm curious. They would be torn from their foundations, just ripped up. Winds would be lower. I wonder how many dead bodies would be ripped up, especially in cities like Youngstown and Chicago, big mafia towns where you got to just know that there are hundreds of bodies that have been concealed under those big towering buildings. there's hope, because if you live near the North or South Pole, you might be okay. They'd be lower, the winds would be lower. But see, there's no human cities far enough from the equator to escape devastation. Longyearbyen on the island of Svalbard in Norway, the highest latitude city on the planet, would be devastated by winds equal to those in the planet's strongest tropical cyclones. Alright, so if you're gonna wait it out, and you have time to think about it, because remember, this is all of a sudden, right? So you might want to travel to Finland and head on to Helsinki. While its high latitude is above 60 degrees north, it wouldn't quite be enough to keep it from being scoured clean by the winds. The bedrock below Helsinki contains a sophisticated network of tunnels, along with a subterranean shopping mall, hockey rink, swimming complex, and more. Whoa, damn. I'm moving to Helsinki. That sounds freaking amazing. I love to ice skate. I don't love to shop, but I wouldn't mind like walking around that mall in the middle of that cold winter, and I love the snow. Oh my gosh. The colder the better. When it was -17, I was outside playing, because honestly, the colder it is, the less I feel chilled. Does anybody else feel that way? Like, I think I am the only person in this town or anybody I've ever met who feels that way. So if you feel that way, let me know, because I kind of feel weird. Like, I've got this strange, like, love of the cold. But it has to be the right cold. It has to be, like, super cold. Because today it's 45 degrees and I'm freezing. I literally walked over to my neighbor's house in a pair of snow boots, long pants, a thick-lined sweatshirt, and a bathrobe to cover it all up. I know, it was quite, and a hat. It was quite the scene. Yes, I'm just as weird in real life as I am on my videos. I'm sorry, I hate to burst your bubble. So no buildings. Okay, back to it, Jody. This is just going to be like a ramble, fact, fun, really fun video that should put you to sleep, help you study. I don't know, I really have been wanting to do this video because it's so cool. This is just like the kind of stuff that I'm totally into. No buildings would be safe. Even structures strong enough to survive the winds would be in trouble. Comedian Ron White. I love Ron White. Who doesn't love Ron White? Oh my god. He said about hurricanes, it's not that the wind is blowing, it's what the wind is blowing. Damn, that's so true. Yeah, because it's not really that the wind is blowing outside. I mean, if you're safe in a wind not affected house, then you're fine. But if it's blowing like buildings, you're in trouble. Say you're in a massive bunker made out of some material that can withstand 1,000-mile-per-hour winds. Well, that's fantastic. Alright, but this is the thing. You'll be fine if, and only if, you're the only one with the bunker. Only one. Unfortunately, you probably have those damn neighbors next door to you. Yeah, that are upwind, okay? And have less well-anchored bunker. Your bunker will then have to withstand 1,000-mile-per-hour impact by their bunker. Isn't that always the case, that one neighbor just has to mess it up for everybody else, right? Right? I mean, really. Somebody just fell out the bed. Run at the dogs. The human race would not go extinct however. So in general, a few people above the surface would survive. Flying debris would pulverize anything that wasn't near clear. Hardened. Alright, nuclear hardened. I'm sorry. Wasn't nuclear, not nuclear. Just, you know what? It wasn't nuclear hardened, okay? However, a lot of people below the surface of the ground, because so many of us live underneath the ground, okay, would survive, but apparently they do, and I just don't know it. They would be just fine if you were in a deep basement, or better yet, a subway tunnel. I didn't even think about that. When it happened, you would stand a good chance of living. And the best part about that is that you wouldn't have to procreate with your family. You wouldn't be inbred. Like, being in a subway, you don't know many people. Not that you'd want to necessarily procreate with them, but maybe one or two. Maybe, hopefully, you got the lucky subway station day group of people, because there can be like the really good looking crowd, and then there can be like, I wouldn't procreate with anybody on this subway day. You know those days. I used to ride the subway all the time with my brother when he lived in DC, and as even a little kid, like 10 or 11, I'm like, this is really not a great looking crowd. But then other days I'm like, damn, this is a really good looking, just like observation of a child. And my good looking is eyes, voice, and forearms. Like, that is I don't know why. Is anybody else like that? Like, that is my thing. Eyes, voice, and forearms. Like, if you got sexy eyes, you got great forearms, you can wear a nice watch, and you got a sexy voice. Oh, yeah, that just does it for me. So now that everybody knows that about me, so guess what? There'll be some other lucky survivors that dozens of scientists and staff at the Immerse and Scott Research Center at the South Pole would be safe. They'd be safe. Alright, so just a dozen of them. And they wouldn't be related either. For them, the first sign of trouble would be that the outside world had suddenly gone silent. The mysterious silence would probably distract them for a while, but eventually someone would notice something even stranger. Wow, the sun isn't moving. Oh, the earth must have stopped spinning and destroying everything in a global tempest. I hate that when that happens. Oh, kick it and see if it starts again. Now here's the funny thing. The earth would start spinning again, and we'll get to that. But you think about that while I continue on. So the air, as the surface winds died down, things would get weirder. The wind blast would translate to a heat blast. So freaking hot. Normally the kinetic energy of rushing wind in small amounts is enough to be negligible, but this would not be the normal wind. As it tumbled to a turbulent stop, the air would heat up like a little oven. Over land, this would lead to scorching temperature increases, and in areas where the air is moist, global thunderstorms and freaking hot, steamy weather. Think about how steamy hot that would be. Oh my gosh, that would be so steamy. You would boil in place. Oceans are cold. They're cold. Below the thin surface layer, there's a fairly uniform 4 degrees Celsius. 4 degrees Celsius. The superheated air would create a type of weather never seen before on Earth. Never. A rolling mix of wind, spray, fog, and rapid temperature changes. blooms of life as fresh nutrients flooded the upper layers. But at the same time, it would probably kill all of the animals in the ocean: fish, crabs, sea turtles, animals unable to cope with the influx of low oxygen water from the depths. Any animal that needs to breathe, such as whales and dolphins, would be hard-pressed to survive in the turbulent sea air interface. The waves would sweep around the globe east to west, and every east-facing shore would encounter the largest storm surge in world history. A blinding cloud of sea spray would sweep inland, and behind it, a turbulent rolling of water would advance like a tsunami. In some places, the waves would reach many miles inland. The windstorms would inject huge amounts of dust and debris into the atmosphere. At the same time, a dense blanket of fog would form over the cold ocean surfaces. Normally, this would cause global temperatures to plummet, and they would, at least on one side of the Earth. If the Earth stopped spinning, the normal cycle of day and night would end. The sun wouldn't completely stop moving across the sky. What would happen? Think about that. So instead of rising and setting once a day, 24 hours, what would happen? It would set what? Once a year as we go around the sun. So one side of the earth would be boiling hot. And then the other side would be freezing cold. And then 6 months, it would switch up. And that would mess up everything. I mean, literally, you would have to take energy. We'd have to figure out a way how to take, how you always say, well, I'll take to China. Well, we'd have to figure out a way to get that molten rock in the center, which would probably destroy the earth, or transfer the energy from one side of the earth to the other to keep it warm, and to use the cold from the other. I don't know, we'd have to figure out something. If the old day-night cycle is gone, when can I feed these gremlins? That's funny, that's what I read earlier. So in some ways, the earth would resemble one of the tidally locked exoplanets commonly found in a red dwarf star's habitable zone. Habitable zone. But a better comparison might be a very early Venus due to its rotation. See, Venus, like our stopped Earth, keeps the same face pointed towards the sun for months and months at a time. However, its thick atmosphere circulates quite quickly, which results in the day and the night side having about the same temperature. Although the length of the day would change, the length of the month would not. The moon hasn't stopped rotating around the earth. However, without the earth's rotation feeding it tidal energy, the moon would stop drifting away from the earth as it is doing currently. Bye-bye, moon. Oh no, come on back. We would get our moon back a little here's where it gets interesting. So as our moon slowly drifts back towards us, what would happen? Well, in fact, the moon, our faithful companion, would act to undo the damage this horrible scenario caused. Right now, the Earth spins faster than the moon, and our tides slow down the Earth's rotation while pushing the moon away from us. If we stopped rotating the moon, our loyal companion would stop drifting away from us. Instead of slowing us down, guess what? Its tides would accelerate our spin. Quietly, gently, the moon's gravity would tug on our planet, and the Earth would return to turning again. Alright, so that was that one. Anybody terrified of the Earth stopping? So, relativistic baseball. What would happen if you tried to hit a baseball pitch at 90%? Not even 100, 90% the speed of light, the speed of light, the speed of light. Well, it turns out that a lot of things, and they all happen very quickly, and neither turn out too great for the pitcher or the catcher or the batter. So he sat down with a bunch of physics books, a Nolan Ryan action figure, and a bunch of videotapes. And he sorted this all out because this is definitely a question that we have all been thinking about. I know it. I know we've all been questioning what in the hell would happen if you tried to hit a baseball pitch at not the speed of light, but 90% of it. So, I don't know about you, but I think 600 million miles per hour is a lot. And that's how fast it would be going. Now remember, you're standing still. So, the air around you would start, the air molecules would start to go back and forth at a few hundred miles per hour, but the ball would be moving through them at 600 million. This means that as far as the ball is concerned, they would just be hanging in there, frozen. So, the ideas of aerodynamics wouldn't apply. So you can't be logical in this. You gotta really go for the gusto. So basically, a plasma air would form as the pitcher would throw this ball, right? And basically, it's a nuclear vacuum. So, which would be fusion. The gamma rays and debris would expand outward in a bubble, which is around the pitcher's mound. They would start to tear apart the molecules in the air, ripping the electrons from the nuclei and turning the air into the stadium into an expanding bubble of incandescent plasma. I don't know about you. None of that sounds good for anybody in the stadium. I mean, I'm not just saying, like, this is not gonna turn out well. At all. Don't do it. Alright, just saying, just don't. After about 70 nanoseconds, the ball would arrive at home plate. Nanoseconds, not seconds, not nanoseconds. nanoseconds. The better wouldn't have even seen the pitcher let go of the ball, since the light carrying that information would arrive about the same time the ball would. Collisions with the air would have eaten the ball away almost completely, and it would now be a bullet-shaped cloud of expanding plasma. Not a great situation for the batter, like I said. So basically, this is going to cause a nuclear explosion in the end. I mean, this is what happens, and probably destroy everything in its wake for a few miles. Question number 3. Spent fuel pool. I don't even know what that means. What if you took a swim in a typical nuclear fuel pool? I don't want to take a swim in a nuclear fuel pool. Would I need to dive to actually experience a fatal amount of radiation? How long could I stay safe at the surface? Interesting. Well, I don't know. Assuming you're a reasonably good swimmer, you could probably survive treading water anywhere from 10 to 40 hours. At that point, you would black out from fatigue and drown. This is also true for a pool without nuclear fuel in the bottom. Spent fuel from nuclear reactors is highly radioactive. Water is good for both radiation shielding and cooling. So fuel stored at the bottom of pools for a couple of decades until it's inert enough to be moved into dry casks. We haven't really agreed on where to put those dry casks yet. One of these days we should probably figure that out. Yeah, I'd say so, since nuclear energy is a pretty popular thing. But here's the geometry of a typical fuel storage pool. Now, either this is going to keep you up because you're so freaking interested in this kind of stuff like I am, or it's going to bore the crap out of you and you're going to go to sleep. The heat wouldn't be a big problem. The water temperature is a fuel pool can, in theory. So it goes as high as 50 degrees Celsius. That's pretty hot. But in practice, it's generally between 25 degrees Celsius and 35 degrees Celsius. That's pretty doable. Warmer than most pools, but cooler than a hot tub. The most highly radioactive fuel rods are those recently removed from a reactor. For the kinds of radiation coming off spent nuclear fuel, every 7 centimeters of water cuts the amount of radiation in half. Okay, so that's pretty good. I'm gonna go with that. That's pretty good. Based on the activity levels provided by Ontario Hydro in this report, this would be the region of danger for fresh fuel rods. So, you would have more radiation on the outside of the pool than you would actually have in about 27 centimeters away from the rods inside the pool. So you could technically swim to the bottom, touching your elbows to a fresh fuel canister, and immediately swim back up. And this would probably be enough to kill you. I'm sorry, you're probably not going to live. Yet outside the outer boundary, which is, as we discussed, about approximately 27 centimeters. You could swim as long as you wanted. The dose from the core would be less than a normal background dose you get by walking around the pool itself. As long as you were underwater, you would be shielded from most of the normal background dose. You may actually receive a lower dose of radiation treading water in a spent fuel pool than walking around on the street, which is freaking terrifying. So as far as swimming safety goes, the bottom line is that you'd probably be okay as long as you didn't dive to the bottom or pick up anything strange. Yeah, let's not do that. But just to be sure, I got in touch with a friend of mine who works at a research actor plant and asked him what he thought would happen to someone who tried to swim in their radiation containment pool. He said, in our reactor, he said he thought about it for a moment. Well, you die pretty quickly before reaching the water from gunshot wounds. There you go. Don't try this at home, kids. I'm just saying, I wouldn't want to be shot. Weird and worrying questions from a what if box. Number 1. What would it be possible to get your teeth to such a cold temperature they would shatter upon drinking a hot cup of coffee? Oh, thank you, Shelby, for my new reoccurring nightmare. My good lord. How many houses are burned down in the United States every year? What would be the easiest way to increase that number by a significant amount, say at least 15%? Hello, police. I have this website where people submit questions. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but that is terrifying. Terrifying. Alright, one more question and then I'll let this silliness go and I will get off of this video and let you go to sleep. New York style time machine. I assume when you travel back in time you end up at the same spot on the Earth's surface. Why would somebody think that? At least that's how it worked in Back to the Future movies. If so, well, I mean, that's a really good source for credibility, but if so, what would it be like if you traveled back in time, starting in Times Square in New York, 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years, 1 million years, 1 billion years? What about forward in time, 1 million years? Okay, so this was sent in by Mark Diddling. I think he has too much time in his hands. So 1,000 years back, Manhattan had been continuously inhabited for the past 3,000 years and was first settled by humans perhaps 9,000 years ago. So about 10,000 years back. So that would be 1,000 years before humans. The Earth, though, 10,000 years ago was just emerging from a deep, deep, deep cold period. The great ice sheets that covered New England had departed. As of 22,000 years, the southern edge of the ice was near Staten Island. But by 18,000 years ago, it had retreated north past Yonkers. So if you think about it, 1,000 years does a lot. Alright, let's go back 100,000 years. The world of 100,000 years might have looked a lot like our own. We live in an era of rapid pulsating glaciations. But for 10,000 years, our climate has been stable and warm. 100,000 years ago, Earth was near the end of a similar period. Climate stability. Oh, that's terrifying. So we have maybe another 1,000 years. That's what he's saying. It was called Sangamon Interglacial, and it was probably supported a developed ecology that would look familiar to us. Interesting. Okay, let's go back a million years. A million years ago, before the most recent great episode of glaciations, the world was fairly warm. It was in the middle of ordinary period. I guess it's a quarterly. The great modern ice ages had begun several million years earlier, but there had been a lull in advance and retreat of glaciers, and the climate was relatively stable. Interesting. So the modern wolf had been here, hyenas. I mean, this is a million years ago, people. It seems like every 100,000 years we tend to have this strange. So how about a billion years? A billion years, the continental plates were pushed together into one great supercontinent. This is not the well-known supercontinent Pangaea. It was Pangaea's predecessor, Rodinia. I had no idea. The geologic record is spotty, but at best, it looked something like well, my best explanation is it kind of looks like an amoeba with, or maybe a nucleus with like little things around it. So now let's go a million years forward. Eventually humans will die. Nobody knows when, but nothing lives forever. Maybe we'll spend our time spreading to the stars and last for billions or trillions of years. Maybe civilization will collapse. We will all succumb to disease and famine, and the last of us will be eaten by cats. Great, this is not what I wanted to read today. Maybe we'll all be killed by nanobots hours after you read this sentence. There's no way to know that it's true. But don't worry, a million years is a long time, and you will not be around. So do not worry about it, my dears. And if you ever want to know absurd hypothetical questions to serious scientific answers, please get Randall Munroe's What If, because it's actually pretty. I mean, that was the first three questions. So obviously I can't like read the whole book to you, but I'm gonna pick really good ones and just kind of read them as we go. But remember, don't worry about the small stuff, because it's all